This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. Welcome to an entertaining discussion of the week's developments in clean energy and transportation. Brian, we've moved our podcast host over to Libsyn from another free service. We're legitimate as we approach our one-year anniversary next week.
This is big news, even though I have no idea what that means.
Well, I wanted to mention it just in case anyone had any problems downloading the show. If you ever run into problems, you can find us on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod on Twitter. And our link that we always use is podfollow.com/clean. That's easy to use, and it takes you, if you're on Apple, it'll take you to the Apple Podcast. If you're on Google, it'll take you to the Google Podcast. If you're on a desktop, it'll take you to the website. So just wanted to point that out, and we are approaching 1 year of a new show. And how are you doing this week? Because you know the variant is here. Has it found you yet?
No, I've got no variant, but I did have a tooth pulled last week, shortly after we recorded our last episode. And it was super unpleasant. I don't know if you've had a tooth pulled recently. I mean, it's not like it would have been 100 years ago, but it was still very unpleasant.
Did it hurt?
Well, yes. But, you know, every time it started to hurt, they stopped and they were like, okay, we'll give you some more freezing. And then they would try again and it would still hurt and they'd give me some more freezing. And then it was just like a half an hour of just like yanking and pulling and hammers and chisels. It was brutal.
Oh, gosh. You know, I had a tooth that I cracked last summer at the cottage, which we've talked about a lot. And they were able to, because there was a filling in the, a really old filling that goes back to when I was like 6, had the filling upstairs in school, probably the way they do things in Canada in the school system back then. And the tooth split in half. So there was the filling in the middle and then the other half of the tooth. So what they did is they drilled out the filling and then they put in more filling, but shaped it into a tooth.
Right.
So I now have a filling tooth, and it works fine. And it was terrible because it was very sensitive to cold and unpleasant. But I had the same experience you did. They kept giving me needles for half an hour, and then that made the lady in a hurry. She wasn't a dentist. She was something above a hygienist and below a dentist. And they said, well, you should try her. She's great, and we can get her tomorrow. And so I said, sure. But she was this, I don't know. She was not a pleasant person when she was behind. She started to panic. And then I said, no, it hurts. And I was more calm than that. But I said it hurt. And I probably wouldn't have said that when I was a kid, but it reminded me of when I was a kid and you would feel the drilling. It was awful. Yeah. The sort of nerve ending. I'm sorry, I'm turning a lot of people off our show. Anyway, the moral of the story is I couldn't open my mouth afterwards. They'd screwed up my mouth. And I was very concerned about this because I enjoy eating. You know that.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a picture of me, you know that I enjoy eating. And I could not, a potato chip was a bit of a struggle. And so I ate potato chips. And if I ate a sandwich, I squished it. I had to squish the sandwich.
Yeah, so flat food only.
Very flat food only. And my kids mocked me. They went around openly mocking me. They would say, look how far I can open my mouth, Dad. And I'd get mad and say, why are you doing that? I didn't raise you to be mean. And then, I've also enjoyed the Popeyes and KFC special chicken sandwich that is very large. Mm-hmm. You have to unhinge your jaw, even if you're a snake, to eat that. And not that I eat them on a regular basis. I just thought I'm never going to have one again. I only had one. I thought maybe I would look forward to having another one again. And no. So my partner gave me some hot pads. And over the course of a few days, I was finally able to unhinge my jaw through internet searches and heat therapy. And now I'm fine again. I'm happy to say I'm off potato chips.
Well, that's sort of similar to, my tooth story, why it needed to eventually come out because it had cracked and they'd put it back together. It was multiple problems with this tooth over time. So, maybe they're still going to have to yank yours out one day.
Oh, my partner has such problems with her teeth that There's one tooth that she thinks that she spent $10,000 on. One lousy tooth is constantly getting capped and root canaled and, infected. And it's just, she has a terrible jaw, though. I can tell she has a terrible jaw because she makes loud noises when she eats. Me, it's completely muted because I have a good solid jaw. Hers is hollow.
Yeah.
And that's her problem. And this has been the Brian and James Dental Show. And now moving on to clean energy topics. What would you like to talk about this week?
Before we get into clean energy, I just wanted another recap of the SpaceX flight that happened this past week. So this is, again, still not technically clean energy news, but Elon Musk's other company, SpaceX, they had another Starship flight this past week, a test flight where they're trying to get these gigantic rockets that are going to eventually fly to Mars. And so they had another test flight this week, and I believe we have a clip.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so it blew up real good. So that's all.
So this is the farm film report then from SCTV. The blowed up real good. Brian likes to say, see, why did it blow up? Why didn't they fix it this time? I heard it was the same thing, the same problem. One of the little boosters in there didn't go off again. Yeah,
they have to relight the engines, and apparently that's sort of difficult. And, they have to do it in a timely manner. They can't relight them too soon, or they won't be able to orient the rocket properly. But they can't light them too late or it'll just explode. So that's what happened. It exploded.
It's hilarious. They call this a RUD, Rapid Unscheduled Disassembly.
Yeah.
RUD.
But it sure is fun to watch. So, I have no complaints about them blowing up, but
I think they want to blow things up, Brian. I think they did this on purpose. They thought, we got lots of money. By the way, Starlink is going up everywhere. More and more people are getting it. I think there's people around here who want to get it just for the sake of getting it, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, I would be interested in signing up, but it is a bit expensive. And we have pretty decent internet kind of where we are, or even out of the cottage is not too bad. So I don't think I'll be getting it anytime soon, but they've got over 1,000 satellites up there in their constellation. So rapid deployment.
Yes, and they're putting up 2 more rockets on the same day. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't. And this is the year that Tom Cruise is going up in space to make a movie, too.
Really?
Yeah, later this year. Tom Cruise and director Doug Liman are going up on a SpaceX rocket, and they're going to shoot a movie while they're up there. So Tom Cruise and Doug Liman, the director, are going to go up on a SpaceX rocket. They're going to go up to the International Space Station and hang out for a while and apparently make a movie.
How are they allowed to do that?
Well, it's SpaceX is a private company, and they just approached SpaceX and said, hey, can we come up on your rocket? And they said, sure.
Well, how much are they paying them? I mean, you and I make movies. Let's go make our movie.
I never thought of that. But yeah, I'm assuming, it's Tom Cruise only makes, $100 million, $200 million movies. So I'm sure they could shoot them a few mil to make this happen.
Well, I think they charge by the kilogram, too. So I'd be like at least twice as much as Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise is a tiny, tiny man.
He is. He's really could fit in the palm of your hand. A lot of people don't realize that. What do you want to talk about? I've got the Super Bowl, and GM has got stuff. And, I'd like to think that this week is not a busy week. I'm always saying, Brian, wow, what a busy week. We have a busy week. I don't feel that it's a busy week right now. I want to talk about the Model S and X refreshes and stuff like that, but overall, I think it's a mild week.
It's true, and I think there probably was lots of news stories like there is every week, but it's maybe, just stuff that we're not particularly interested in talking about. So, I thought it was a bit of a slow week, too.
So what did you want to talk about?
Well, there's more rumors about Apple and Hyundai Kia getting together to make a car. Amazon has started using the Rivian electric trucks in their deliveries. And then, I also wanted to talk about General Motors and their Super Bowl ad.
All right. And you haven't seen the variant around. The variant apparently is here where we live in Regina.
Yeah, no? Well, it is microscopic, so I'm not sure how I would see it. But no, it's so far so good.
Yeah, well, I'm worried about the variant. I'm worried. I think that things are going to shut down again, just like they did last year around the same time.
Yeah, well, in, what was it, Southwest Australia, one of the regions of Australia, they just shut down again, like a 5-day lockdown after having no cases for 10 months. Like they had shut it out completely for 10 months in this one area of Australia. They got one case, and I think it was a variant, and they've now shut the whole place down. And that's, seems like really the way to do it. Like you got to get the cases down to zero before you open stuff up again.
You got to Wuhan it to death. You got to shut it down. All right. Well, go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So some more reports. This isn't official news yet. This is still rumors, but Apple is apparently going to invest $3.6 billion with Kia for their electric car that they've got coming up. This is going to be in Georgia, in a car plant in Georgia that's owned by Hyundai Kia. So nothing official, but things do seem to be moving along in this direction of Hyundai Kia building the Apple electric car.
Are you excited about that?
Well, I'm interested. I don't know if excited's the right word, but, it's interesting.
I'm sorry. You need to be excited. It's interesting. Well, I don't know. I've got a new segment for the show, Brian. Are you shocked?
Okay.
That's not the name of the segment.
All right.
The segment is, what do you think?
What do you think?
What do you think?
What do I think of what?
That's, I want to get to that. I'm going to get to that. I need better music. Anyway, I'd also like to thank Brett Bell for supplying our music for us. It's a year in. We've never thanked the man. Have you noticed that?
I thought we did on the first episode, but yeah, I mean,
well, he's due for another one.
Yeah, thanks, Brett.
Once every year. Not that he's listening, but thanks. And to anyone who's related. The news segment, Brian, is What Do You Think? Where I ask you, what do you think about a topic that's been going on in the news? Something that requires your opinion. Now, this is not that different than the lightning round, which is coming up later in the show, of course. The lightning round is a fan favorite of our show. And I feed a whole bunch of things to you rapidly. But this is just basically, what do you think? So my first what do you think for you, Brian, is what do you think of the Model S and X refresh? That finally came, by the way. And Elon has always said, no, we don't refresh cars. Well, hey, this is a very, very refreshed car with a very weird steering wheel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not sure I would like the weird yoke steering wheel, but it's the specs, I think, that are the most interesting. They've been able to make the damn car even faster, which is crazy. And the Plaid Plus is still coming later in the year. And so the rumor is that maybe that's the one that has the new 4680 batteries in it, whereas the current ones have the regular 18650s. So yeah, that hasn't been totally made clear yet, but it's all very interesting.
Do you think that the yoke steering wheel, which looks like an airplane steering wheel, if you can call it that, do you think that is going to be legal? Because you can't. You know how you have to turn a steering wheel? You can't see me in radio land here, but I'm turning my steering wheel over and over again. You can't really do that with a yoke steering wheel very easily. And will that be dangerous?
Yeah, and it could be that it doesn't fit the rules. In different countries have different rules for cars, so maybe it's legal in some places, maybe not in others. One of the hackers found reference in the code to a different steering wheel. So it is possible maybe that it'll be available with a regular steering wheel, but that's yet to be seen.
All right, Brian, I have a subset question to you. What do you think about it not having a drive shifter? Like it's guessing which way you want to go.
Yeah,
that's controversial. What do you think of that?
That seems like the craziest part of it to me because I don't know. That's a problem with a lot of Apple products. Like Apple tries to remove themselves and make things automatic. And when it works, it's amazing. And when it doesn't work, it's super frustrating because it's very difficult to override it and get it to do what you want to do. So apparently you will be able to drive shift by touching the touch screen. So that's kind of the override.
But that's awkward.
So maybe it'll work all right. But,
Can you imagine yourself doing a 5-point turn in the middle of traffic and having to go forward in the back and then forward in the back, or maybe you're stuck in snow?
Yeah. But maybe, I mean, we don't know, maybe it'll actually work and you won't need to touch the shifter. Maybe you will be able to do a 5-point turn and maybe it'll be smart enough. We'll see.
All right, Brian. Fair enough. What do you think of the Sandy Munroe interview with Elon Musk? Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I did watch the whole thing. It was interesting. Didn't think it was great. I mean, limited time with Musk. It's about 45 minutes, I think. So there's a few interesting discussions in there. So they talked about mostly kind of engineering details about the cars, why there's variation sometimes, like why the panel gaps on some of the Tesla cars are kind of poor, why they're good on others. So I thought we got some new information from Musk about how things work. So it was pretty interesting.
Okay, staying with Sandy Munroe, the automotive industry consultant, what do you think of Sandy going for a drive in an FSDbeta car? Did you see that?
Yeah, they mentioned that in the interview. So while he was there interviewing Musk, they took him around in a car that has the full self-driving, and that was the thing that he was raving about the most, how amazing that was. So, and I think that's a version that hasn't been released to the public yet.
Yeah, I think that that's significant. I think it's the biggest significant thing we've seen in full self-driving beta for a while, because it's one thing for your average guy, your Tesla enthusiast, to drive around with a dash cam and take videos and say, "No, this is amazing that it's doing this," and you might feel the same way if you were there. However, Sandy is a guy we all trust, and he knows cars in and out. He's old, and he's been around the automotive industry his whole life. He knows even rockets and airplanes and stuff like that. And I don't know how much he knows about the other full self-driving programs or whatever, driving autonomy programs at GM, etc. But I trust him. Do you trust him? Like it sounds like there's a lot to be impressed about.
Yeah, and I've been driving around the last few days. It's been snowing here again, a little bit almost blizzarding the last couple of days. And I've been thinking a lot about the self-driving in winter, because I was sort of noticing how, when there's a lot of snow on the roads here, people just start to drive in certain patterns that aren't necessarily related to the lines on the road. So there's several roads that I drive on regularly where you end up driving in the ruts that are left by other cars, but sometimes you can see then the painted lines underneath, and you're like, oh, I'm driving on the shoulder. Like, this is not correct. And I'm really curious to see how the full self-driving computer figures this all out.
My guess, if you don't drive in the rut, you drive slowly and with difficulty, because if the snow hasn't been cleared yet, then the fact that other cars have cleared it down is better, right?
Yeah. It's I think, the self-driving computer is supposed to work like a human, so I'm assuming it'll eventually learn to drive the way that I'm driving it. But
they have to dumb it down then.
What's that?
They have to dumb it down then.
Yeah, thanks, yes.
That was not a shot at you. Humans in general. We're idiots. Just the fact that they're doing this. So if you have a 2-lane road in your direction, like a 4-lane road in Regina, there will not be 2-lane traffic in that road when it snows.
Yeah.
People will not go over to the median. They'll be scared of the median because they can't see it. Yeah. So they won't be there. They'll be almost right in the middle of the 2 lanes, or, it essentially takes away the 2 lanes of traffic. Yeah,
a 4-lane roadway will basically turn into a 2-lane roadway.
Yeah, and if you might say, well, I feel stupid driving right over the white line, and then you try to go where you're supposed to go, and then you think, it's like sluggish and slowing me down and pushing me around, and I'm not going to do that. So what do you think about the semi-electric truck remake that has been spotted ahead from the Tesla Semi? Do you like it?
I didn't have a great look at it, but yeah, just basically another prototype was spotted of the Tesla Semi, and I guess they've made some slight adjustments to the styling. Is that it?
Yes, as far as we know. I think it looks a lot better. It looks a lot less than the Nikola, so they can stop suing them. This has been our first edition of What Do You Think?
What do you think?
That was fun.
Yeah.
Brian, Amazon officially started using Rivian electric van to make customer deliveries. Did you see that?
I did. I think what's interesting about this is that it's basically a prototype, and Tesla does this too, where they actually deliver cars using their prototype semis. So, yeah, it's I don't think there's a history of doing that with gas-powered cars or diesel-powered trucks, that you would start using your prototype for deliveries, but Amazon is doing it, and I think that bodes well for what's happening.
So they're going to hit up to 15 cities in 2021. That's this year, friend. This year. I keep thinking that's next year. It's this year. It's a good thing I don't write checks at the supermarket because I'd be writing 2020 on them. My wife, for her work, needs a safety inspection done for the car, and they wrote 2020 on it. And now she has to go all the way back and get them to initial this and that and make it official.
Damn it.
So we don't lose millions of dollars when she kills children in the back of the car in an accident. So, 10,000 vans in 2022. So that's a good start, I'd say. They're going to hit 100,000 by 2030. I imagine they don't want to retire all their ones. It's not very economically. You can't just scrap every van you have if it's still working, has a serviceable life left. But they are replacing 10,000 next year in 15 cities. That's going to be cool to see. And yeah, it's gonna erode gasoline. Yeah,
and they can always sell the ones that they currently have. So as soon as they get the supply, they can get rid of the oldest ones in the fleet. And as long as there's new supply coming in of the electric ones, then they can always just sell the other ones, get rid of them.
All right. And what else do you have this week?
Well, just on that topic, there has been lots of talk about different production milestones and stuff. And it sounds like the Tesla Model Y is going to start production around mid-2021 at the Berlin plant. So that was kind of new information. So that was kind of fun. And General Motors keeps talking about all the electric cars that they're not making yet.
They're very good at that, aren't they?
Like, it's very strange, isn't it? That you would have a whole marketing campaign based around a product that doesn't exist yet. I mean, I guess maybe they know what they're doing because, they're high-paid marketing
people. What's the CEO's name? Mary
Barra?
I can't remember her last name. Sorry?
Mary Barra?
Mary Barra. She, when Trump got elected, she marched into his office and said, hey, take away the fuel economy standards. We don't like them. And they did.
Yeah.
4 years later, Biden's elected, and she's going to get rid of electric cars by 2035.
Yeah, funny how that works. I'd be shocked if they're still making ICE-powered vehicles in 2035.
I would too, and that's my point. Maybe they'll be selling a few electric pickups and medium, like the F-250 or 350 or whatever, the larger variants of the gas-powered vehicles. And I don't actually see them making those either. I mean, the electric trucks, we're going to start to see them next year in serious quantities from a serious number of people, and they're going to prove themselves very quickly to be superior to the ICE variants, and especially when it comes to fleet vehicles and they look at the cost of operation, the cost of ownership, it's going to be saving them a lot of money, and they're going to massively go for it as fast as they can make these trucks at first, just to fill the fleets, let alone the guys down the street who want their trucks. So I think that is bogus. I call BS. And and they've got an ad out, don't they?
Yeah, I think we have a clip.
GM's Ultium battery is made for all types of vehicles, so soon everyone can drive an EV. Whoa!
Why didn't we all just go together?
Knowing Will is probably flying private.
Hey, Norway, listen up, you fish-loving! Oh, this place is adorable. Damn it. Where are you guys?
We're in Finland. Where are you?
I'm in Norway.
Norway? You're in Sweden.
Damn it.
And that's Will Ferrell from Saturday Night Live fame and various other things fame. What did you think of the ad, Brian?
I thought it was pretty funny. I was like Will Ferrell. He's married to a lady from Sweden, so maybe that's why he ended up in Sweden there. That's probably where he was when they actually filmed it. But I still find it strange that they're spending millions of dollars on an ad campaign for vehicles that don't exist yet.
You know, the Super Bowl is famous for ad campaigns for electric vehicles from companies to sort of reposition themselves as a brand to say, hey, we're advanced. And this goes back to the Nissan Leaf 11 years ago, where they were advertising on the Super Bowl with a polar bear hugging somebody who owned a Nissan Leaf. And then I think the year after that, they had one, which I like, an ad using, while your toaster's not powered by gas, and then they show a toaster with smoke coming out of it, and it seems archaic that, something would do that, and different appliances like that. So, yeah, I like that ad, but, I mean, I'm still talking to people, and they're still naive about electric vehicles.
No, and it's almost like there's been some kind of electric car ad every year for the last 10 years, except for from Tesla, because they don't do advertising. They don't need to, but everyone else spending millions.
Those people on Reddit who are making the GameStop stock go up, they should all get together and... the Tesla fan community could get together and make their own ad and buy a Super Bowl spot. They could probably. This would have been the year to do it, because the major like Pepsi and Coke and Budweiser are not advertising this year at this year's Super Bowl. So, yeah, we don't get to see the ads in Canada, so we won't be able to. I won't be able to miss out as in many things. But yes, last year was Audi, by the way, advertising electric cars. I think it was Audi last year. It was the year before, but
and they do actually have an electric car that you can buy. It's not in huge quantities, but that's something.
And you know what GM has? Having come out with one of the first the EV1 in 1999 even.
Yep.
They crushed all those. See the documentary Who Killed the Electric Car for more information. And then the Volt, which had a gas backup engine, but a very good car, came out about the same time as the Leaf, kicked off the EV revolution, the big one that we're still in. And what do they have, Brian? What do they have? They have one car right now, the Bolt. One. Now, they are coming out with a crossover SUV this year, but they're full of crap. Let's just say it. I'd say the S word, but we're going in India, and they don't like us swearing over there. So they're full of crap. Dung, if you will.
And this has been Full of Crap with James Whittingham.
I don't like them. I don't like you, GM. You should have... you could turn out to be a leader. I mean, it's possible that they will turn things around. They have the technology, they have the expertise. They know how to get batteries and what it takes. Whether they will, commit to it or not, we will see. But I tell you, they may not be in business. I made a comparison on Twitter. It's like Nokia saying in 15 years, we're going to get rid of the flip phone and be only smartphones. Are you going to be in business when you say something like that?
Yeah, I mean,
how naive are they?
The vehicle business does move slower than the phone business, so it's not a totally apt comparison, but in general, that is correct. And yeah, they'll be lucky to survive.
People buy new phones every 2 years, which is kind of bad, but that's the way it is. People buy a new car every 6-8 years. So, but there's a lot of people out there, and they're starting to show up in surveys that are intending to buy electric for their next vehicle when that day comes. And sometimes there's people out there ostensibly not buying right now because they're waiting for cheaper cars, or they're waiting for longer range, and all that is coming soon. So, yeah, I noticed in that interview with Sandy Munroe that we talked about earlier that he thought 2030 was going to be the tipping point that no one would be buying ICE cars anymore. And this is a guy who spent his entire career in the ICE car industry, right?
Yeah, I think they were saying that's the midpoint. Like around 2030, it'll be about 50% electric, 50%.
I think he's wrong.
Yeah, seems a little conservative.
It seems very conservative to me. I think that, all we need is for as far as infrastructure goes, it's not that hard. I mean, one of the stories that I wanted to talk about later is the fact that Tesla is starting a supercharger factory in Shanghai, China, and the new factory is reportedly going to be able to produce 10,000 supercharger stalls per year. Now, they only recently surpassed 20,000 in their whole existence, Brian, for the last 8 years. And now they're going to be able to make 10,000 of them in the year. This is, I feel, a very aggressive. I mean, should we buy Tesla stock? I mean, is it crazy?
Seems like a good idea to me.
We're down $14.79 today, but
What?
we're up at $8.50. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. It's still up, though. It still looks good.
We're very close to all-time highs, so it's fine.
It's fine. You'll be fine. There's not going to be a stock market crash. There's no bubble. You're not going to go broke. Right? You can't go broke. We need you to be strong.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I want to invest in something. What am I going to invest in, Brian? Tesla's too high.
Well, I think Tesla still is a decent investment, but there's other electric car makers like Proterra is recently now on the stock market with ACTC, ArcLight or something. So Proterra, I think, might be a good investment. They're already making lots of electric buses and that kind of thing. So it is a bit risky because we're not sure which of these companies are going to play out. But, obviously a huge transition going to happen. So I think there's lots of opportunities somewhere.
So there's BYD, Build Your Dreams, in China, which Buffett famously invested in about almost 15 years ago. And then there's Proterra, who's making electric buses. And we are at the tipping point right now for electric buses as far as price goes. And even our city is thinking about doing it. And one thing I wanted to talk about is because our city of Regina here in Saskatchewan, Canada, has 200,000 people. And the Transit Authority, which it's a driving town. It's very much a driving city. Like even kids drive and everybody gets their license and drives. It's not a big city. It's an agricultural, sprawling city. And no one uses the bus.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone uses the bus. They have a hard time. They need to make a compelling service for anyone to use it, but it's hard because nobody's using it and nobody wants to use it. Now, here's my thought, Brian. I want you to hear me out. They're asking for feedback. My feedback to the Regina Transit Authority is such. I think you have to look at the fact in your long-term planning that robo-taxis are going to be here within the decade. Okay? So, I mean, you could go out and buy electric buses, which I would like to see, because we don't have a single one here yet. Mm-hmm. We don't even have a hybrid bus in Regina yet. It's kind of a shame. I hate diesel buses. I hate the smell. I hate the noise. And they amplify themselves when they're congregating in a downtown skyscraper setting. So I'm thinking buses in a city like us, and this is what I'm discussing with you now, I want your opinion, are moot. That if we had robo-taxis, you could buy a Regina Transit Authority pass for, it's 20 cents a mile. It's 20 cents a mile at most on a robo-taxi, and it's probably going to be less than that. And maybe even free with advertising because you could have forced advertising and a screen in front of you. Is that a crazy idea?
Yeah, it's possible money spent on transit is, not necessarily a great investment because, robo-taxis might end up stealing whatever small transit user base there is. So, it's going to be a real problem, particularly, I think, for smaller cities like ours.
But what about, so you and I have lived in Toronto. It's a bigger city. It's got a lot of traffic, a lot of commuters from suburbs. What are robo-taxis going to do? This is something I wondered, what are robo-taxis going to do there? I lived, how far did I live away from the subway? 2 or 3 blocks from the subway. And Toronto had a fairly temperate climate. It wasn't like here where it gets down to minus 30 or 40. And, but it's a cold. Yeah. It's a wet cold. It's a cold, wet cold. And, I think if I could take a robo-taxi for the price of the subway, why would I take the subway? Come to my door. I wouldn't have to walk to 3 blocks. I wouldn't have to congregate with sneezing people. And this is pre-pandemic here. I mean, but Are subways going to be in trouble? Are mass transit going to be in trouble when these robotaxis? This is the question I've had. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or is it pointless to think that they'll build to handle all that? I mean, maybe the Boring Company will build roads in various layers. They say they can. Yeah. You could have, 100 different levels of roads under the ground just for one-way traffic. I don't know.
I have thought of that. I mean, I think the subway will still be cheaper for most trips because you're going quite a bit further. Like a robo-taxi trip of several kilometers is still going to be, a little bit expensive. So, the thing with a city like Toronto is there's just options for transit. People ride bikes, they walk, you take the bus, the subway, the streetcar. Like there's, just adding another option of robo-taxis will just be, one more option.
Okay. Well, we'll see. What else do you have for us this week? Anything?
I just wanted to talk quickly about Prairie Lithium. This is a local company. This sort of goes along with our discussion we were having a few weeks ago about geothermal power here in our province. So they've started to dig these geothermal wells to create electricity, and they're able to do it using the expertise that we have from the oil and gas industry. People that would normally be drilling oil wells are now drilling these geothermal wells, and it seems to be working quite well. And there's a startup company here called Prairie Lithium that's been getting a bit of press. And it's also kind of tied to our oil and gas history. So I think this is quite interesting because, of course, you can extract lithium out of like the oil tailing ponds or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just on their website now, and it's just interesting because they have a lot of imagery from the oil industry. Like there's pictures of oil wells and everything. And it's the same idea. It's to utilize the expertise that we have in the oil and gas industry, but use it to extract lithium, which is something that we're all going to need for car batteries. So like the little video they've got on their website, it's like images of oil wells and Teslas. It's kind of weird.
Oh, that is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there was a story on CBC about how BC and Alberta, or at least Alberta's oil boom, they're talking lithium there. They're desperate because they didn't get the Keystone XL pipeline, and they're panicking about their economy and their workers and unemployment rates. But boy, I mean, you talk about wind and geothermal having some things in common with the oil industry and skill sets and expertise, but actually using the oil industry to get lithium I wonder if there's people who are against it. Government officials who I don't want to do anything for the EV industry. We have to have oil and gas because it's going to survive forever and we're going to be fine.
Well, that seems to be what they're doing here with their imagery and their marketing. It's like, they're trying to equate the two. It's like, okay, there's a picture of a Tesla, but, also pictures of all this oil infrastructure. They're trying to bridge that gap, it seems.
Okay, Brian, Moose Jaw is talking about geothermal. That's the city next to us, the quaint little, what is it, 60,000, something like that?
Yep.
60,000 people, city that you like. You enjoy going there for food and
I think it's more like 40,000.
40,000, okay. Well, they're talking about exploiting their geothermal for heating a agricultural sector that they're setting up, like a agricultural subdivision. Now, they have a spa there, which we've all been to, which uses hot geothermal water for the spa. And it pumps it up from, how far away is it? You're probably an expert on this. How far away before it goes into the ground? It's like kilometers?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but it is, it's ground geothermal water, yeah.
And there's a hotel there. Did you know that? The Grant Hall Hotel is heated by geothermal heating. Did you know that?
I learned that from the article I read about it, but I did not know that. Yeah, somebody bought this old hotel on Main Street in Moose Jaw a few years ago and refurbished it. And apparently they put in geothermal heating, which is kind of cool.
So, we don't have earthquakes around here. We don't have volcanoes. I don't know where the geothermal comes from. I guess there's just water that is heated and it's accessible, right?
Yeah, you just go down deep enough anywhere on Earth, you'll get hot water.
But it's more accessible to Moose Jaw, isn't it? Because that's what we seem to have, It seems to be more economically viable because you don't have to go as far.
Yeah, it must be closer to the surface or something, because they had initially a mineral spa there like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and that was the inspiration for the new spa that they built like 20 years ago or something. So yeah, it could be that they're in a better situation. It's closer to the surface there.
Okay, so the mayor says in terms of agriculture, that would likely be helping to grow food. So they're talking about greenhouse kind of opportunity, which I think is fantastic, because you don't even need the hottest water for greenhouses, by the way. You need very hot water for electricity, which we found out about Canada's first geothermal electricity plant being tested down towards the U.S. border in Saskatchewan. We should go on a tour of that in the summer. If they invited it, I could set that up. Would you go down with me?
Sure. Well, we could record an episode in the car.
Yeah. We'll do that for our summer vacation shows. When we want to take a week off, we'll have a road trip in the car, and then we can have some interviews down there and maybe make a little video for our YouTube channel, which you can look up. I think that'd be great. I'm sure they'd have us. So we should look into that for this summer. I don't want to go now. I want to get my vaccine. And, a little bit pleasanter weather would be nice too. So that's a good idea. I'm going to mark that on my calendar, and we'll do that and have that for you later in the series. Anyway, I think it's a great idea because you can have 65 degrees Celsius water will do a great job of heating a greenhouse. And if you have that, then the greenhouse becomes very economical because you're not paying for the heat. And in a place like Saskatchewan, where we get very cold here, this is much colder than Norway, much colder than a lot of places, we can't grow our own food. So it'd be nice to be able to grow tomatoes and things and reduce the greenhouse gases of things that come from far away.
No, it makes so much sense. Like, this is a problem we really should solve so that we can have local food production in the winter. And this, totally seems like the perfect way to solve it.
So they're calling it an agri-food industrial park. It's 700 acres of unoccupied land, and 75 acres of it are already surfaced. They're pitching it as a prime real estate for industrial food producers, but they don't have any industrial food producers. But if they do, we can go talk to them too. They're talking about especially the pulse crops, and I don't know what that is, and wet pea sectors. I'll tell you, Brian, I'm getting old. If my pea ever not becomes wet, I'm going to be in trouble.
So this is a bit like what you were talking about a couple of weeks ago of overbuilding your solar, like superpower solar, where you've got extra solar power. You set that up on your grid, and then you can attract businesses that need cheap power or can use the cheap free power. So this is a similar idea. It's put in the infrastructure for free geothermal heat and attract your businesses, and away you go.
And, they should heat schools that way. They should heat subdivisions that way. It gets trickier for homes, but if you have bigger buildings, it makes it more interesting, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, Brian, it's time for the lightning round.
The Clean Energy Show lightning round.
Oh, God, is it time for the lightning round?
Yes.
How are you doing this week, Brian? Are you feeling good about this whole thing? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, a study shows that walking, cycling, and e-biking make significant impacts on carbon emissions. They've studied this, and they determined that if you don't use a car and if you encourage people to do it, it's hard in our city for the same reason it's hard to take a bus. It's a big, sprawling city. And I don't take my bike in the wintertime, but I know some people do. What do you think about that?
Well, duh. That's what I think. Well, duh.
Good answer. Stand by. Toyota and Fiat Chrysler drop opposition to California's emission rules. Good for them.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, does that coincide somehow with a change in government?
Brian, they've realized the jig is up. Of course it does. It does. I hate them. I own a Toyota and I hate them. And I think people at the dealership listen to our podcast. I would like a deal on a new EV. What do you have for me? Nothing? Screw you. All right. Tesla has officially canceled the Model Y long-range rear wheel. I can't. This is too much R's. I can only handle maybe one, maximum 2 R's in a sentence. Tesla has officially canceled the Model Y long-range I'm broken, Brian. The pandemic has broken me. The Model Y long-range rear-wheel drive variant. It might be the dental problems I've had. I don't know. Maybe my jaw is not working the way it used to. And they will honor the price of full self-driving suite when the vehicle was ordered. Is this a problem?
Not really. They've switched the lineup around, which they do occasionally. And I think at some point recently they realized because battery supply is limited, it makes more sense to offer a Model Y Standard Range Plus. So that's what they did. And they just had to eliminate another one in the lineup because they can't make them all. They don't have enough batteries to make them all.
I think this is great. The Model S and X are getting rid of lead acid batteries, which you talked about that on the Sandy Munroe interview as well. They're getting rid of the lead acid 12-volt batteries. If you don't have an electric car, you may not be aware that electric cars actually do have 12-volt batteries, and like a normal car, and they're used to sort of just power the electronics and the radio, and because the actual dry batteries are higher voltage, and
Yeah, that was one of the interesting parts of the Sandy Munroe interview. Yeah, they talked about 12 volt for a car is kind of outdated, and everybody would like to move to something higher. Apparently, like 48 volts would be good, but it's difficult to do everything that they want to do and still produce thousands of cars. But I believe we talked about it in an early episode of the show, but Hyundai were actually the first ones to get rid of the lead acid 12-volt battery and do lithium ion for one of their hybrid cars, like maybe the Sonata or something like that. I remember talking about that on the podcast. So Tesla's not the first ones to do it, but yeah, the refreshed Model S and X have a lithium ion 12-volt battery, which is better than the lead acid because you got to replace those every 3 to 5 years. It is one of the things that Tesla owners have to do, even though there's very little maintenance. Those 12-volt batteries do die, and it is annoying.
And it's apparently true for a lot of EVs. I've seen Leaf owners have this problem too, and it has to do with the car not getting used. Like the batteries like to get used. Yeah, they like to get charged because what happens is, you charge the big battery in the car, the big massive drive battery, and that battery goes through a converter and tops up your 12-volt battery. And if your 12-volt battery gets drained through vampire drain, through various sensors or whatever, it can go down. So if you use the car regularly, it's not a problem. If you have it parked for 5 days a week, like a lot of original Leaf owners did, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't recommend buying low mileage Leafs, because I think they're actually in better shape with a little bit higher mileage, from my experience of shopping for one. Here's the big thing though, Brian. They last the lifetime. What is wrong with me? Have I had a stroke? Maybe. They last.
Do you smell burnt toast?
Not really. They last the lifetime of the car. And so you never have to replace it. Yes, it's more expensive. I have an electric snow shovel I had here the other day, a few thousand podcasts ago. I think I showed a sound of it. And I still use it and like it. It's a cordless electric snow shovel. I have an electric lawnmower, and I know you do as well. Do you have anything else that's portable and electric other than, say, a drill?
Well, yeah, just small tools and stuff.
No leaf blowers or hedge trimmers or anything.
I do have a hedge trimmer. That is correct.
Battery?
Yep, battery.
Nice. Very nice. So I assume they could just take a few of the cells from their battery pack and put them into a form factor that I think they'll be manufacturing their own lead acid or their own lithium batteries. So yeah, you never have to replace. Yes, it's a lot more expensive, and keep in mind. The battery for my e-bike is $350 Canadian, probably about $275 American. And that's far more than you need for the car. But the idea of never being completely reliable, this is going to make EVs even more reliable, which is cool, I think.
Yeah, that's
because
great.
If your one problem you have is the lead acid battery not being strong enough. The nice thing, though, is if you give it a little bit of juice, it'll start the car. You don't have to crank anything to start the car. You just need to, and then it'll start charging it itself. How do you feel about the first Tesla Model Y with heated steering wheel coming to Canada? This tells me something, and I'm just going to bounce this off you. It tells me, since the Nissan Leaf and a lot of other cars have had it, electric cars, so that you don't use as much heat, because that really drains the battery, that Tesla has been late to care about cold climates. Your comments?
Yeah, I think that's true. I do get that sense with the car that I own. It feels like a California car, and it's just small little things like that with no heated steering wheel. They were definitely more concerned about California climate. This is another thing that I've noticed over the winter, by the way, too. So the Tesla's got several cameras, obviously, that it uses as sensors and for the self-driving and so forth. In the winter, when the sun is at its lowest, the side pillar cameras will often get obscured just by the sun shining into them. Like you'll be driving down the highway and the sun, because it's so low here, because we're quite far north, even though it's noon, the sun is quite low in the sky, and it just shines right into those side pillar cameras, and you get this little notice on your display that says, your left pillar camera is obscured, and it's because the sun is blasting right into it.
Well, that's very interesting. I hadn't heard that one before, and we'll have to contact Elon and tell him about that.
Now the car presumably doesn't need every single camera to do the self-driving, so I think it'll work out and it's not a problem. But yeah, it is one of those things where they wouldn't run into that problem in California.
No. If you're from a warm climate and listening to our show, we're envious, and B, the sun doesn't go quite high into the sky in the wintertime. It'll just stay remarkably low, like probably, 6 o'clock p.m. type for other people.
Yeah.
But then our days are longer in the summer, so yeah, we've got that going for us. I don't know. There is a carport powered entirely by solar panels, which are part of the structure. It is a very large carport in China that has been constructed. And basically, I think it can power 400 cars a day. That's how big it is. It's just so many solar panels that you could charge up 400 cars a day entirely on sunshine. And I would certainly like to see more of that.
Yeah, parking lots are the perfect place to put solar panels because you got lots of space and keeps the cars nice and shaded.
Especially in hot climates. I noticed down south in Arizona, there's a lot of carports. You don't see those in Canada. There's a lot of just to keep the sun off your car, so it's literally not boiling over. I'm surprised the dashes don't melt. It gets so hot.
Yeah, and I have a carport with my house. And by the way, Frank Lloyd Wright is the inventor of the carport, in case you were wondering.
I was, and I can't believe that, really.
And so I have a carport, but yeah, like I kind of have a California-designed house as well. It has a, 1960s California kind of feel to it. But again, it's like, our roof leaks every spring because of the low slope roof, so on and so forth. It's not a particularly good design for our climate. And yeah, it appears to be kind of a California design for my house as well.
I'm just going to point out that Nissan is launching the Aria-inspired Leaf 10 special version that is celebrating 10 years of the Nissan Leaf, and they are only doing this in Europe. Hello, Europe! And it is cool looking. It has nice features, and it has some interesting things from their crossover, which is the new vehicle that's coming up later this year. I'm just going to let that out there. And then I want to say, Brian, to close up the show this week, that coal is on track to disappear from the U.S. power grid by 2033, and this is Morgan Stanley saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed it's so far in the future, but, it was inevitable, as we've discussed many times. It's just too expensive to make electricity with coal now.
So if coal is gone, like gone, no way it's going to be around in 2033. This is economic forces. This is not policy. I think that's important because Canada has a policy to shut down coal by 2030. I think our province got an extension for that, which is shameful and unnecessary, more politically motivated. Then that's a good thing that the economic forces of you and I have always spoken about are taking over the clean energy sector.
Yeah, natural gas will be next. That'll be the next one that's too expensive.
Yes, and we're going to be talking a lot more about home heating on green energy in our show this coming year. So everyone, the Clean Energy Show can be found on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod. Our email address is cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. And you can leave us a voicemail message at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. We love to hear from you, and I want birthday messages, people. Let's have some birthday messages because next week we're turning 1 year old, and I don't know about you, Brian, but there's going to be cake on my end, lots of cake.
Oh yeah, cake for sure.
So we'll see you once again next week on the Clean Energy Show.
Yeah, see you next week.